Hi, everyone, and welcome to AB Conversations, where we will help you CFP your way out of it. A podcast where you get into the minds of a couple certified financial planners on how we think and feel about everyday financial planning questions and what should really matter most to you. A healthier financial life starts now.
Hey, Ben. How's it going?
I'm doing very well. How are you? Good?
Good.
I hope.
Good.
All's well?
It's hard to imagine the first month of the year is behind us already.
Yeah, and we are looking forward to a Super Bowl game in another couple days. We are looking for warmer weather. We're looking for
Yeah.
excuses to get outside, I hope.
So we're looking opportunistically at the future.
There we go. Yes, not letting the headlines of cold weather get us down.
Yes. So the focus of today's podcast, and I feel like we've talked about this in different iterations in different other podcasts too, but it's just the general theme of tuning out the noise when it comes to headline news, particularly around investments.
Yeah.
Because what we've seen, right, if we assume most people are like us that want to be well informed, you want
Yep.
to make decisions from an informed position to avoid mistakes that can,
Sure.
when we're thinking finances, could end up being costly in the long run. But is it possible to have too much information in either watching too much news, listening to too much, headline news, reading too much when it comes to financial news? Research may indicate that too much or a higher level of input may lead to not so great outcomes.
Yeah, so two things on that. First of all, I have been paying attention a lot more to like retiree research that's our primary mode of business, working with retirees and kind of understanding the difficult transition. The number one thing that retirees do in retirement, like how they spend most of their time, is watch TV, right? I hope that's because there is more free time and not because they're not connecting socially or finding other ways to engage. But with that, pair that with this research. There was this MIT study. This was done a long time ago, and it was with MIT students. But basically, what the professor did is wanted to see the impact of news on how these students would go about buying and selling a certain company, right? So, to one subsegment, all they got was the financial data on this company over a period of time. To the other group, it was that same financial data, but all of the headline news on this company. And you can probably see where this is going, or else I wouldn't be bringing this up on the podcast. The group that had all those other inputs, the headline news, they fared far worse than the group that was just focused on the investment data. And
Yeah.
there's really only one explanation for that. And our human interaction, right? Our human emotions input to what we're trying to judge, it really just blurred the lines for those students instead of just relying on the statistics.
Yeah. That's such a human aspect, is to hear a piece of information, whether it's fact or opinion, which we can kind of
Right.
talk about some of that. When you're just reading a headline, I think for the most part, we are just defaulting to, well, you take it at face value. I assume this
Sure.
to be true. And if that makes me feel a certain way, either really, I'll say, thinking opportunistically and I'm enthused by this information, and I feel good about it, that may lead to taking more risk than may be warranted in the situation. But I think where we see it most often with clients, it's the other way. You hear the doom and gloom headline, and now it's, I want to run to safety. I want to get out of the lifeboat, right?
Right.
I know I'm safe here if I stick to the plan, but I don't feel so great if these negative things are correct. Then I probably should be doing something safer. And that's where we see just that emotional aspect of how people interact with their savings and their investments can lead
Sure.
to maybe some costly mistakes over time.
Yeah, I think there too, not just opinions, but so often in the world of finance or economics, politics. Let's put these all together, right? All these things that
Mhm.
we're probably charged up about. Predictions can be assumed to be like some sort of future guarantee of what's going to happen. I mean, how often do we get asked in the first couple weeks of the year? And we're not even these big investment guys, but you get clients who are like,
Sure.
"So what do we see happening in the market this year? What are the experts saying?" Those
Yeah.
predictions they mean nothing. I mean, we could probably give any number of examples looking backwards where something was
Hmm.
predicted to happen that didn't,
Right.
or just the fact that change is hard. So when we do see a change in administration, when we do see change in laws, when we do see the economics ups and downs change,
Yeah.
then we assume that we have to change with it or that we should be pivoting when we don't know if that's necessary or not.
Yeah. And even just something as simple as you said earlier, working with retirees, building wealth, right? They've now accumulated, they've done hopefully the hard work of saving to get to that point. And now, when you have maybe what will at some point be a finite pool of resources, the natural thing is to preserve that. You don't want
Right.
to see
Yeah.
that
Yep.
safety net kind of go away. So already the inclination is certainly towards less risk than more risk, which again I think just feeds into the when there are negative headlines, it kind of pushes someone even further down that scale to I don't want to see fluctuations. I don't want to be whipsawed, back and forth in the market. I just go somewhere safe and get a decent rate of return.
Let's look backwards at some of the bigger headlines last year that I think naturally, even for us, would have given us pause to go, ooh, let's pay attention to this. Does this necessitate some sort of change in how people are allocating their dollars and how people are saving? Even younger people will come to us and say, is now a good time to start investing, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes that question's coming from, but I heard this and this makes me uncertain. Or, hey, there's an election coming up, or now it's a new administration. Is this a good time to get started or not? I'm a little, you know,
Uh,
uneasy. Start where you want, but I think we could probably just use the recency of 2024 to say it's good you tuned out the noise because here we are today in a better position financially than we were on January 29th last year.
Obviously, the news, for the most part, or the media in general, is there, and their goal is to get eyeballs.
Right.
Right? They are meant to attract viewers. That's how they sell ads. That's how they make money. So there is an entertainment side of it, I think. But there's no shortage of, again, I'll pick on them, right? It's negative things that typically get the most engagement. I feel like that's a social media thing recently too, that there is way more engagement with negative posts, right? If you can kind of
Yeah.
get under somebody's skin, that gets them far more engaged than positive news that is, oh, well, that's nice. And then you kind of move on to the next thing. So just that in and of itself, again, I think tends to lead to more fear from people reading the news or certain headlines. But then when you expand that just beyond the US and you think of all the negative things that can happen globally,
Well,
you
yeah.
throw
Right.
in wars all over the world. You got Israel and Hamas, and maybe there's some progress happening there, which is, it seems like that's good news. War in Ukraine and Russia, like all of these
Yeah.
big, and
Yes.
those are just the ones that are happening that we know about. All of the other little intricacies of how will that impact the US? How will that impact parts of the US market? So the fact that the markets, again, you said it, climbed a wall of worry just when it comes to geopolitical events, and I feel like that's just an ongoing thing. That in and of itself can cause a lot of turmoil, or at least internal, fear of where our market's headed if we fear bigger conflict in the world.
Yeah, and so let's take that back to, like, the client level then. I'm trying to remember the number of conversations we had last year where insert headline here, right? Geopolitics, there was a sell-off in August, it was
Oh
economics,
man.
politics, whatever it was. Insert headline, "This is giving me pause, what do we need to do about it?" And I realize those out there in the listening world that have worked with us long enough or plug into this podcast, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
sound like a broken record, right? Because
Sure.
the reality is I feel it too. The world feels heavy. People are going through things personally. We're certainly tied to these things. We're not immune to what's happening out there in
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but our response is almost always the same, right? We can't jump out of this plan. We can't leave the lifeboat when the lifeboat is there
Yeah.
to keep us safe, even if we're taking on some water. And at some
Yeah.
point, it'll be calm again, right? The heaviness of what you're going through, the initial reaction can't be, although I get it, right? It would be completely rational to read a headline and say,
Hmm.
Feel safer if I'm not invested. It would just
Yeah.
be so incredibly expensive to jump out of that portfolio or make some big decision based on those headlines.
Yeah. And I know I'm guilty of this maybe in a negative way that you had kind of talked about. There was a very quick drawdown in August that was mainly triggered by a huge loss in Japan. They had a single day where they were down over 12%. And then, of course, following day in the US markets responded accordingly. We were
Yeah.
down anywhere from, 2.5 to 3.5%, depending on the index. Had I not gone back and kind of looked at that, I knew that this happened, but I didn't remember or feel the magnitude because that was 5 months ago at this point, and the market has felt good since then. You kind of lose sight of all of these kind of negative headlines that at the time felt awful, right? A
Adam,
3% move in the market is big. And we just saw that recently with the whole AI thing over the weekend.
you and I, so that was a Monday. It's funny how I remember these things because I remember I had to be out of the office at a church thing. And by the time I got back, I'm like, Adam, we got to do something about this. Let's draft a communication for our clients and get ready to put it out in case this
Hmm.
is like a bigger thing.
Yeah,
And we put out that communication. And I know that you're going to know the answer to this. How many people replied to that? How many people maybe even read it? We don't know,
you're right.
but 0 people replied to it, right?
Sure.
Good on our clients to like, I hope they rolled their eyes at us going, yeah, we know, we saw, but long-term investing, I'm not going to get
Yeah,
overly worked up about it. Like that's what we need. We felt the need to react to it. And I don't want to say shame on us. It's good to be proactive. We'll always be proactive
for sure.
communicators, but
Yeah.
I almost look back and hearing us talk about this podcast now, like I didn't follow my own advice of tune out that noise. Let's see where things go and let's not overreact to it. And I feel like maybe I overreacted to a 3% down day thinking my
Yeah.
clients are going to freak out.
Well, and sometimes it is just the fear of contagion, right? It's, yes, I understand that maybe this is just the one thing, but what if it turns into
Mhm.
something bigger? And that's where certainly we are not immune to that. But I think our communication would have been more along the lines of, we understand what's happening. It's not time to abandon ship.
Right.
Let's stick to the plan. This too shall pass.
The idea of talking now about AI and the presidential election and now a new administration, these are headlines that aren't going away this year.
Right, right, right. Yeah, so that's a valid point. There was just, of course, there was a presidential election that happened, and of course, the campaign leading up to that, which certainly, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, you either felt good or you felt bad, and you probably moved between those two feelings throughout the year. And as we talked about in a previous podcast, investing based on your political beliefs is usually not a long-term strategy that will work out for you, right? Because it's still the same. You're going to feel good when your party is in power. You're going to feel bad when it's not. And if you're making investment decisions based on that, long-term says it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference in the grand scheme of things. If the economy is growing, companies are profitable, and you're disciplined in your investments over the long term, the market always reaches all-time highs at some point. But yeah, we did have fears of an economic slowdown. I feel like we've been talking about potential recession for the last 3 years now that has not come to pass. So there again is just a perfect example of there were probably so many, I was going to say opinion pieces, but there were articles written that are calling for recessions. It hasn't materialized. That doesn't necessarily mean that, well, I guess it does make them wrong, but at the time it felt real. It felt like a possibility. And that's not to discount, maybe the facts within those given articles, but to make wholesale changes to your investments based on any one variable is
Sure.
typically not the best way to kind of go about it. And by the way, you have all of these things in 2024, and the S&P 500 hit an all-time high more than 50 times last year.
Yeah. I don't know how many days the market was open, so this isn't like 50 into 350, it's not
Right?
350, it's less than that. That's like once every 5, 6 days.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we could probably wrap this all up into one comment, and it is to recognize the human element of our emotions. It's not to say don't pay attention to the news, don't have opinions on where you see policy going or what's important to your family and your friends and your beliefs. But a
Mhm.
lot of this news, a lot of the things that you will hear, read, tune into on whatever channel or network you listen to, those are not important inputs into your financial plan.
Yeah.
Savings, taxes, diversification. These are things we need to pay attention to, not whatever
Yeah.
biases we may have about, the lens that we see the world through.
Yeah. And I think your point there is valid. It's not to completely discount the feelings on, certain variables in headline news, but it should be a conversation, right? Because I know we've talked about this before. There are so many moving pieces that go in, or inputs that go into, okay, is the market up? Is the market down at any given point in time? And it's impossible to weight those things to know, well, but this piece of information is really going to have a big impact. And this information, ignore that. Don't worry about that little piece of information. It's very hard to kind of parse out what's truly impactful and what's just noise. And more often than not, it is mostly noise. And I think that's where it's good to have hopefully an advisor, hopefully a planner to kind of lean on, have those conversations. Let's talk through what those headlines are that may be worrisome and try to put it into context for that person's plan. And does anything need to change based on the positioning?
Yeah, it's like I almost want there to be this panic button for anybody that feels comfortable knowing it's there, but that
Hmm.
panic button is in a different room. I'm in that different room ready to chat with you, and then beyond that room is where the panic button is, and if it needs to be
Yeah,
pushed, you
yeah,
and
yeah,
I will push it together.
yeah,
It's like the visual I want of, it's okay, like, we are human. We feel the weight of all of it, and I promise you and I are empathetic, like, we feel it too. We have a lot of these
hmm,
conversations. I'll walk around this door, over to the other side of this wall where you are, and we'll have these conversations,
yeah,
and nothing will come of that other than I needed to share how I was feeling, you needed to share how you were feeling, and we decided together, we don't need to act on this. But
yep,
I hope, especially if somebody's out there that is really feeling uncomfortable about something. It can be AI,
yeah,
it can be changing the whatever it is.
yeah,
Have your advisor, have your plan. Don't have that panic button too close to yourself.
yeah, yeah. And so I'll just put a bow on it by saying, I'll reiterate what you said there. The amount of times we've had those types of conversations and we get to the end of it and it's just, from the client perspective, I feel so much better just having this conversation. I feel better just being able to get it out of my brain, right? Get it off of my chest and have a reasonable conversation to just feel like somebody else is watching this. I'm not on my own,
Right.
and that I feel better just to talk these things out, and I will feel much better when we get to the end of that conversation. So yes, that in and of itself can go a long way to giving some peace of mind, or at least hopefully giving some perspective on where we're at, where we see things going. And if we do our job and if the clients are kind of on board with structuring things in a way like the whole bucketing theory to buy yourself time to ride out those negative headlines when they are happening.
We're here. If we have to be that sounding board, we're happy to do
Yeah,
it.
definitely part of
That's
the
why
job.
you have us.
Yep, exactly.
All right, pal. Tune out the
Yeah,
noise. Best we
go
can.
birds.
You got it. Second time around on the Chiefs. Let me ask you, just so it's like now recorded.
Oh man.
Are they gonna can they do it? Are they gonna do it? What's your prediction?
I don't want to jinx anything, but I feel good.
That's all I ask. Let's be optimistic going into this. I feel
Yeah,
good. All
yeah.
right, pal.
We'll follow up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, well, they'll know by the look on our face by the end of that week. All right. Thank you for this. This is
See
important
you next
topic.
time.
I do
Yeah,
believe this is going to be something we're all going to work through together.
for sure.
All
Yep,
right.
got it.
Next time. Bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, Adam and I really appreciate you tuning in. Please note that the opinions we voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be most appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, your accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to making any decisions or investing. Thanks for listening.